Order the June Board of Adjustment meeting for the City of St. Pete Beach. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can have a roll call, please.
Member Small.
Present.
Vice Chair Garshaw.
Here.
Member Core.
Here.
Member Causey.
Present.
Chair Chase.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Fantastic. We'll start with swearing in. Jenny?
Anyone who will be speaking to the board or making a presentation needs to be sworn in. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you are about to give or present to the board is truthful? Yes. Thank you.
Thanks. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Kristen, are there any changes for today?
No, Madam Chair.
Does anybody have any concerns? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Fantastic. Now the second item for today is audience comments. This would be a time if you have anything to share that is not on the agenda today, you'll have an opportunity to speak to an agenda item at that time of review. But if there's something that you'd like to speak on that's not on the agenda, we're happy to hear from you. All right, moving forward for the approval of the minutes. Did everybody have a chance to review May's minutes? Any edits, comments? No? Roll call, please.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from May 28th, 2025.
Second.
Vice Chair Garshaw.
Yes.
Member Core.
Yes.
Member Causey.
Yes.
Member Small.
Yes.
Chair Chase.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we just have one action item for today's meeting, case number 25074. Can we review any ex parte prior to the presentation?
I drove by the site.
None for me.
I did a site visit.
Yep, site visit.
Brandon?
Yes, good afternoon. Brandon Berry, planner. If we could pull up the PowerPoint. This is variance case number 25074 for 107 20th Avenue. It is a practical difficulty variance. Mark Strojewski of Strobel Design Build for Patrick DeFore requests to construct a new house medium structure that will encroach to 8 feet from the rear property line, where 15 feet is required. This is a variance from Land Development Code section 20.15, particularly from the house medium building type. Here's a listing of exhibits. Staff did notice this hearing. We did not receive any letters for or against the request. An aerial of the property, it's on the north side of 20th Avenue. It has a zoning of RLM2, that's residential low medium on the future land use map. This property zoning district does allow for multifamily, but at the lot size, it allows for a single family home, which the applicant is requesting to build. This property is within the Paso Grill overlay. It does have standard 20-foot front and rear setbacks based on the underlying zoning district. The applicant did choose to go through the design review process, which makes them eligible for the house medium building type, which does have reduced setbacks. The trade-off is that it does go through the design review, which they went through earlier this month with the Historic Preservation Board. The required rear setback for the house medium building type is 15 feet. They do have an existing setback that encroaches beyond that. They did receive a certificate of appropriateness for the prior historic home back in 2015 to add on to the rear of the structure, which made them eligible for a setback of up to 10 feet. They chose to build at 12.3 feet. That's not a variance, that is a benefit that comes along with historic structures when a certificate of appropriateness is issued, so they were able to take advantage of that at that time. The home has been demolished. They are proposing a new home with a setback on the east side of 8 feet, which I'll show in a moment. The applicant had initially applied for a variance to the front setback requirement. They are choosing to build a structure with a 10-foot front setback that is a by right permission based on the design review, which, as I mentioned before, they went through earlier this month. They are requesting a rear setback reduction that goes beyond what the historic board can grant through that design review. As I mentioned before, that is a 15-foot rear setback. They are requesting a rear setback of 8 feet, so an encroachment of 7 feet. They had gone through that certificate of appropriateness process back in 2015, but that is a benefit that only extends to historic homes. It's not transferable for a new build. They do have to comply with the Land Development Code standard for the new build. So this is a survey that is showing that, former now rear setback. The home has been demolished of 12.3 feet. And you can see here the site plan proposal. It is a similar footprint to what was previously on the property. It is a 2-story structure, as I'll show in a moment. And you can see that 8-foot rear setback. That is one enclosed level over a carport that extends beyond that 15-foot rear setback line. Here's a rendering. This is showing the rear looking from the alley, and you can see that encroached portion on the left side of the screen. Here's the floor plan. Again, same footprint. It is showing that office area comprising the 7-foot encroachment beyond the 15-foot rear setback. And here are some additional renderings of the property as proposed. Some photographs of the site. This is looking at it from 20th Avenue. The home has been demolished. That did go through a certificate of appropriateness process earlier this year, and it was demolished. This is looking from the alleyway at the rear of the lot toward 20th Avenue. This is looking to the east along that alleyway. You can see here a 2-story structure on the east side of the alleyway and one on the west side of the alleyway. These are neighbors to the property under consideration today. The property was purchased in 2012. The setbacks at the time were stricter than they are currently. In 2017, the city amended its code to create these building types. So the rear setback has been reduced from a underlying zoning district standard of 20 feet to what is now allowed to be 15 feet based on the building type. As I mentioned before, the front setback standard has been reduced from 20 to 10 feet, which eliminated the need for a variance because the applicant chose to go through the design review. And I'll cover the second point in a moment. Staff does find that the applicant has partially justified the request. The direct result of this variance is unlikely to cause any kind of adverse change in the neighborhood. I pointed out those 2 neighbor homes in the photographs. Those have 2-story portions of the residence that do encroach closer to the alleyway than the applicant is proposing to build the home. There are 2 stories. They are of similar scale and mass to the subject home. And actually, the subject home, I believe, is of a lesser living square footage than those homes would be. So the structure is certainly not out of character. It did go through the design review process. There were a few minor design-related items that the Historic Board had recommended, particularly related to the garage doors in the front. The applicant has taken those under consideration, but both staff and the board had limited comments on the mass and scale of the structure. I do find it to be in character with the design standards as well as with the neighboring properties. However, staff does request additional testimony from the applicant as to why the 7-foot portion of the building that is proposed to encroach could not be accommodated elsewhere without difficulty. Staff had pointed out next to the new outdoor deck on the west side of the structure, or possibly oriented north to south with the deck made a wraparound, would appear to eliminate the need for this variance. Understanding that the applicant is seeking to comply with the same footprint, that is a benefit that comes along with contributing structures and preservation of historic structures. The applicant was not able to save the structure. I know that they looked into doing that, but that is a power that the Historic Preservation Board maintains as part of their certificate of appropriateness review powers, and we would just like to make sure that there is a genuine difficulty in this case with accommodating the office elsewhere on the site. The applicant should provide this testimony as well as whether any alternative plans have been developed should the variance not be granted. So your motion options are to approve with conditions. Staff are not recommending any conditions. If you were to move on approval for this, you could move to deny or to continue to a date certain in this case based on the standards that the applicant is requesting. I know the applicant and their agent are present. I'm happy to answer any questions.
What's the size of the lot?
I believe it's 5,000 square feet. Get back to that.
Is it 50 by 100?
I believe so. Let me get back to that survey. Yes, 50 by 100.
Just to make sure I understood, the other two-story homes that are on the same alleyway encroach further into the alleyway than this home would in terms of thinking about usability of the alleys and the like?
Correct. There will be, they have the power lines at the back, so they will have the radial setbacks for, from the lines per Duke standards, but there are no easements in the back of the lot or otherwise, so they just have the standard setback.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think one thing also to consider, and Brandon, correct me if I'm incorrect, but those structures, at least to the west, that is a separate structure. Like,
Correct.
it is not an attached, it's not attached to the principal building or the dwelling. It's actually a detached, at least to the west, is a garage with an apartment above. So that it isn't considered one
Got it.
building.
There's the house, and then there's a garage with an apartment above? Isn't that two structures on this, two?
That's what I wanted to say, that with this, it is one single-family dwelling, one element, and to, at least to the west, if we looked at their survey or the aerial, it'll show that it's two individual structures.
The neighboring properties,
The
not
neighboring
the property that
Oh,
we're
the
discussing.
neighboring.
Yes, I just wanted to say, those pictures that Brandon referenced, those are also either, contributing, and that there is a single-family residence in the front,
Yeah.
and then they have the accessory to the back. So it's not one structure. It's always-
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify too, there's a lot of setbacks in around, talked about through this presentation. So number one, you said there is already an approved reduced setback for the front of the house by 10 feet, right?
Correct. So the 20.15 building type standards allow for that 10 feet in the front based on design review, which they have gone through. So they're eligible for that without a variance.
So they have taken advantage of that first 10 feet off the front, and now off the back, there was a reduction from 20 to 15 that took place, and now they're looking for a reduction from that 15 to now be down to 8.
So the former home was approved, that was a historic structure, and it was approved back in 2015 for a rear addition, which the historic board, without granting a variance, is eligible to approve to 10 feet. They took advantage to 12.3 feet. So that was on the former structure, but unlike a variance, it's not transferable because that's specific to the historic structure.
The historic structure is demolished, and now are the homes on the east and the west historic?
Yeah.
They are on the contributing list, I believe, yes, so.
They're contributing, not designated,
Okay.
but they are contributing.
And have they been in existence prior to the current
Yes.
Yes.
standards?
Yes.
Or, are they encroaching on the front by their additional 10 feet on the front? Do you know? Or are we only looking at the back sides?
That I don't know, but the variance is only for the rear
Right,
setback.
I'm just curious if when we looked at the whole, would those homes also be encroaching into the 20 feet on the front?
I haven't checked that.
There were two pictures that you showed of the garage, and the two pictures did not look the same. Can you find those pictures that you showed? Yeah, so if I'm looking at the one in the top left, is that the back of the house or the front of the house?
That's the front of the house, and that was,
So the front of the house, the driveway's got to go over the sidewalk?
no, there are no driveways in the front. Those are for just a use purpose, and I'm sure the applicant can explain it better than me, but we.
No, I'm just asking how you get into those, if I'm at that one at the top left, that's the front or the back of the house?
That is the front, facing 20th Avenue.
That's facing 20th Avenue?
That is correct, but there will be no driveway access proposed.
Facade. Those garages are like a facade
But,
design.
oh, they're just a facade?
No, they will be operational, but again, the applicant can probably explain a little bit more. The
No, go back.
historic board did have some questions about that.
Well, I'm just looking, so the one on the picture on the right, then that's the
Rear,
rear.
correct.
It just doesn't look the same. Okay, I see. All right. And then the bottom is which side?
That is facing,
Is that the east or the west side?
that is the east side.
There's an alley there, isn't there?
There is an alley in the rear.
Yeah, how do you get to the alley in the rear?
It would be,
I'll show you on the site
I
plans.
think there's an alley just to the east of the property as well.
No,
tried
it would be
go
to the
down it.
west. The way the property sits, it would be one to the west. There is the alley that runs from 20th to 21st. So the property's here, there's another adjacent property alley going north-south and then east-west behind the property.
Maybe show the
Aerial.
aerial, Brandon, the aerial.
Does that help
Well,
orient you?
but there are two alleys, as there are any place in Pasco. There's one on the east and one on the west. Not by that property necessarily, but there are two different alleys.
There are, it is an interior lot,
Yeah, no, I know.
correct, but
Same
there
as-
is alley access that the property does currently utilize or prior to demolition for a rear access. That alleyway running east to west is heavily used by a lot of those properties in there.
Yeah, I saw.
Brandon, for the original historical designation that allowed them to have the 10-foot setback in the rear that they took advantage of the 12.5, that's no longer relevant because they had to demolish the structure? Is that correct? They are only now eligible for the front?
Correct. It's not like a variance that typically runs with the land. It's specific to the contributing historic structure. So that's been demolished, and they would need to go back for, even if they were to go to 15 feet based on the underlying, they would need to get a variance for that. So what's shown is a request relative to the building type standard.
Okay. Any additional questions for Brandon at this time?
So all buildings in this area are subject to a 15-foot rear setback.
Correct, yes.
And then they're subject to a 20-foot setback with the exception that they go through this design review. And then they can be authorized to do a 10-foot setback.
Correct. So the option is based on the underlying zoning. So if they were to not go through a design review, the setbacks would be 5 on each side, 20 feet in the front and in the rear. Because they went through the design review, they're eligible for the 10, which they will be compliant with. They don't need a variance, and 15 feet in the rear. But because they're encroaching beyond that, they still need a variance above and
Okay.
beyond.
So they actually earn the 15 in addition in the rear at this point. It's
Correct.
just they want 7 more feet. Okay.
Correct, yes.
And it's based on the path in which they chose, because in that area you can do the overlay or the underlying. But it's great to know if you went to the underlying, your envelope is smaller, and to the overlay, your envelope is a little bigger.
Okay.
Thanks, Brandon. Would the applicant like to share the case? If you can just state your name and address for the record, please.
Mark Strojeski, 705 126th Avenue, Treasure Island, Florida. I'm with Strobel Design Build. I'm the contractor and partial designer for this project for our owners here. I want to first address the question that you had regarding the garage doors in the front, because we kind of talked about this through the design. And I can let the owners testify a little bit to this as well. It's so they can open it up and have use of that front, and coming from the beach down the street, they tend to come through the front there rather than the alley. So that's the design feature. What you don't see on the drawings and the renderings, those garage doors will actually have islands of vegetation in front of them. So they're really not going to be exposed from the street that much. There's going to be planter beds there and trees in the front. And also, as a requirement, around the front edge of the property, there will be a garden wall. So that'll be around the whole front and just the opening for the path coming to the house. So it should be very clear to everybody that those garage doors are not for traffic to drive in. There's no curb cuts or anything like that from the street.
Helpful.
So then what I'd like to also address is that this project is not really something that the clients wanted to do. They kind of have to because of the floods. I was the one that actually, we put that addition on with that first variance in 2015 with them, and they're in love with their home. They had it before they had the kids and everything, so we added that bedroom on the back, and they love the floor plan, and they've lived with that, and they're actually going to be making this their permanent home here, coming from Tampa. Then the storm hit, and we had to do something. We explored lifting the home, just due to the construction of it as this old red brick and everything. We didn't think that the structure would be able to handle lifting the home, which was a disappointment because they're, like I said, very much in love with the home the way that it is. So what we tried to do was design a home that had almost exactly the same floor plan and the same L shape of it to maintain that green space in the back. What you saw there, the front, the reason why we're 10 feet back, the setback, that's actually just the open porch. The mass of the house itself is still 16 or 17 feet back from the road, which the existing home is 16 feet back from the road. We're moving forward a little bit to add that porch because now we're going to be 10 to 12 feet up in the air. They wanted to maintain the front entry to the home into the living room and the front right side of the house. So that's why that porch is on the front and adds a little bit of space that we needed to go through the design review to get approved. Like I said, they love the footprint of the home. It is almost exactly the same as what the existing historic home is there. We explored many iterations of the floor plan to move what is encroaching in the back that we're asking for is actually the master suite with a very small home office for him on the back of it. The home office is the only room that didn't exist in the previous floor plan. And like I said, as them using this as their primary residence and living here and now with the children, he's on the phone a lot. This required, you know, a little separation from the kids' rooms, a little separation from the great room and everything. And this is why we tried to relocate, maybe put that office on the west side of the property. Like the staff suggested, you know, physically we could do it, just functionally it didn't really make sense to do that. That home office really needs to be separate by the master suite in the backside there. So we tried to shorten that so we didn't have to have as much of a variance or any at all. But what that does is that master bedroom became so small that you couldn't have a closet, that you couldn't have a bathroom to kind of achieve that same layout they had before, but with this little extra space. So in a nutshell, that's why we're here today. If you'd like to hear from the homeowners, they're happy to speak on their behalf as well.
Do you guys have any questions for the contractor prior to the homeowners?
What was the air-conditioned space of the old house? Do you know how many square feet?
1,500 and some change.
And this one?
1,700.
So it's 200 square feet bigger.
Correct.
And that's part of the reason for you need this?
Yeah, that is part of what the office extension is on the back, and the home, I think, is about a foot or so wider on the width of it, just because they weren't at the setbacks before with the previous home. We're taking advantage of kind of coming right up to the 5-foot setback on either side. So it added a little width to the home.
I've got a quick question. So did you take into consideration the front setback on the homes to either side?
Yes, we did. So the home immediately to the east of it has the same setback as this, well, the home that we demolished, the existing home was. It's about 15 or 16 feet. So the setback of this, the mass of the house will be the same as the house next door to it. It's just the open second-story porch will come forward from the house next door.
Second-story porch, okay. And then what about the house on the other side?
On the drawings to the rendering, we're not.
18 of 18 in the certificate of completeness and docs. Or you have it on your PowerPoint.
Yeah, so in the upper left picture there, you go up the front steps and you turn right and go up, and that's an 8-foot by 12-foot or so open porch, and that's the front door that leads into the house. That front porch is what sits in front of the mass of the home. In the bottom left, you can kind of see it as side profile as well.
So in this case, the porch will be a little closer to the street than the front of the house to the east.
That's correct.
And then what about the house to the west?
I don't think is there a house to the west? I don't know, I'd have to look. They're all about the same.
Yeah.
In looking at this view, can you kind of point out where were you exploring without this variance, what your direction would be?
So, yeah, without the variance, we'd probably have to eliminate the office. And at that point, I'll have to talk with the homeowners about adding, if they need to have the office, exploring a second story. What we're trying to do is not build a mega mansion there. We're trying to keep what was a one-story home just a little higher up. We certainly, without a variance, can go forward and add another story to this and get the square footage. It's expensive rebuilding a new home. They love the way that it functioned before, so they're not opting to, maximize the square footage on the property, just the layout.
So what goes under, if I'm looking at the picture that's on the right,
Yes.
what goes under that extension that comes back? I guess that's where the office is? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So
What's underneath that?
underneath it is carport, so that is parking. So from the alleyway, they can pull in actually tandem 2 cars. So that's going to actually relieve.
Put in 2 side by side?
No, tandem front to back.
Yeah.
So that on the right picture, when you pull in the back of the house, you can see there is 1 car parked underneath that carport, but there's space in front of that as well that'll be open all the way to the main mass of the house.
So 1 car could park outside and 1 can go underneath unless they want to put both of them underneath?
Yeah, to be honest, they could fit 3 cars because there's a garage door and that carport going into the main house. So you could pull 1 car all the way into the house, and then 2 cars would still sit underneath the house, underneath that carport.
So the picture at the bottom I'm looking at is, I'm sorry, again, which side of the house is that? The one on the bottom?
That is the east side of the house.
It's the east side of the house, and where that looks like grating or something there, that's just for air
Yeah, those louvers there, because that's open, that's actually not
It's
enclosed.
ventilation.
Exactly. So they want to just, have some privacy, but still maintain some airflow and not make it look, so closed off with concrete. So, yeah, and that, what you see there, that's essentially as far as that carport goes under the house, and you can fit 2 cars front to back in front of that. It makes the backyard feel a little bit more open as well, because it's not a huge lot. They want to maintain, the green space and things like that, so being able
Well,
to
it's
get...
like every lot in the historic Pass-A-Grille. They're all something like 50 by 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, given the L space, I guess, or the L shape, the implication is to bump out, but I guess what I was expecting was to hear the possibility of, widening the L off of the house to give yourself more opportunity.
We explored that.
To have the addition of some space for office.
We explored that, even 2, 3, 4 feet. It's not really enough to reconfigure that to get actual rooms out of it. And we explored putting it where you see on the right side picture where the porch is in the back there, but that is the great room and the kids' bedrooms, and there wasn't really a great spot to put a home office there.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions for the contractor? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If the homeowner would like to present to the board, you're welcome to, but it's certainly not required.
And there was no letters either way, correct?
No, there was no letters, but I know that we have also talked about, what is directly beside both east and west of this property, and I just wanted to bring to light across the street, we do have 2 properties. One has actually been demolished, and another one is to be demolished. I have that demo review in my queue, so...
And the fire station on the corner.
That is correct. So just for knowledge sake, the neighborhood is
A lot
also...
of moving parts.
Yes.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Patrick Dufour, previously 107 20th Ave, St. Pete Beach. I guess I'm open to answer any questions. I don't really have a prepared statement. I think the variance comes down to basically the home office. We also are a homeschool family, so our 2 kids are home. I'm on the phone 8 hours a day. I do commission-based sales, so just having, previously I worked out of the master bedroom, and so the bedroom got smaller here. We had, with the addition we did, had an exterior laundry room. So the master bedroom and bathroom, the variance before was for the bathroom. We kind of had laundry and the office all in the master. And so now we're taking the laundry room out of that back L, if you will, and putting it to the main part of the house, which gave us a little bit more room. But between the master and the office, that's just kind of the best spot for it.
Any questions for the homeowner?
The last thing I'll say on the garage doors, it's basically beach storage stuff. So walk in from the beach, instead of having to go all the way around the house and go into the back, you just open the garage doors and put your fishing poles and beach stuff in there.
It's clever.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
If there's anybody else here today that would like to speak on behalf or in opposition to this application, now would be the time to come forward. And hearing none, we'll close the public discussion and open for board conversation.
Usually, if it's new
Can you speak into the,
if it's new construction, we have to adhere to the codes, but as opposed to them going higher, I think it's nicer. What was it the historic board came up with as far as recommendation or denial?
Brandon shared that they had some questions about the garage doors and making sure that were clearly not usable, but otherwise they had no additional comments.
And they did achieve, I think, their goal of getting an additional 10-foot setback and the 15-foot setback from a 20 and 20. So there's a total increase of 15 feet.
But
Is that
now,
my
and in the
understanding?
back, 8, go down to 8 in the back with this proposal.
Correct. So I'm just saying they are, given the steps that have been adhered to, they have achieved incremental 15 feet. Is my understanding. That is correct, Brandon? Just correct me if I'm wrong.
So, I mean, my take is this is a pretty refreshing renovation for Paso Grill.
It's a
right?
beautiful home.
It's a beautiful design.
gonna be great.
There's no controversy from the neighbors, the alleys.
It's just that it's a brand-new construction, and we know how we can adhere to codes, and we're going through all the steps, and you get to a certain point where you design for your land. So I, have to say I agree with
Brandon,
Member
were
Small.
you going to answer that question she had?
I was just going to agree. It's 15 feet when you add the 5-foot encroachment in the rear and the 10 in the front that are allowed by right.
Okay.
So,
And Brandon, one more question for you, if I may. Technically, they could go higher, is that right?
they could.
They could put out a second story and keep it at, was it 33 feet? That's allowed?
It's 32 feet to the
32 feet, yeah.
highest point, yes.
I just,
I'd rather see it not go higher.
Well, it's anecdotal, but I feel like if we polled, the community of Paso Grill on the options of do we have houses that go higher or are we encroaching an additional 7 feet into the setback, that the overwhelming majority would prefer to see homes stay as modest as they can to be more in line with the historical, nature of the community.
especially in that neighborhood, The only thing I'm concerned about, and Kathy brought this up last time, is that these things are going to keep coming back because there's so much rebuilding being done. And at some point, we just have to say you can't, because we can't keep giving variances. I mean, you weren't here last week, but we denied somebody 14 inches higher than was allowed. And Kathy was the one that said, yeah, we just can't keep saying yes, 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 yes.
I totally recognize that. I also think every case is seen
It's
in
different.
its own, right? And I think the fact that this case is not asking to go both up in maximizing square footage as well as out, that's a significant factor to take into consideration.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I just,
Last week was about height. I'd rather grant this variance than see them go back to the board and then raise their house. I think in that neighborhood, it would be just better for the atmosphere of the neighborhood.
yeah, I have a feeling every neighbor that's going to rebuild in that area has the opportunity to stick within these setbacks and heights. And whether you want to encourage them to have less of a setback or go higher, we will never even hear from those that just choose to go higher. So to pick one out in the middle and say, well, we'd rather have you encroach further out than go up, I think would be kind of silly for us to think we're not going to see all the other houses around them go up without ever talking to us, which is great, because that is the Paso Grill decision on how they want their historic neighborhood to adhere to standards. And I think that's where you go. If it's a brand new home, we have certain opportunities through the historic board process and design review that you can achieve additional variance. And it comes to a point where you design within the footprint.
I got a question, Kristen. So you said there's another structure on that alley that's going to get demoed. Which one is that?
So there is the corner, if you're looking to the south, I believe it's 106 and 108. So if you're looking from their front yard looking south, it would be to the right and pretty much directly across.
So it's not one of the ones on the alley then? It's on the other side of 20?
It's on the other side of
Oh,
20th,
okay.
but it's not directly adjacent, but it is across the street and to the west, which is also that corner alley.
Okay.
There's a whole mixture of architecture on that street anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at that alley, it seems like almost everything encroaches. And to me, they're just asking for less than what's already encroaching. So I agree that new construction should definitely conform. I just have a different feeling about this specific case because there's only 3 or 4 lots on that alley on each side, and every single one of the other houses encroaches, including the fire station. I think, if I recall, we gave them like 2 feet from the property line.
Yeah, they got a lot of variances, but they had to build a fire station.
Yeah. So that's how I feel about it, I think.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
I'm just,
Only because all the others are the same.
Well, I believe the one right next door to them is all encroaches that alleyway more than they want to, so.
Well, they were built at a different time, and they're also deemed historic. So once they get them torn down, then if that's their decision, then they'll get rebuilt to code and to the current zoning restrictions. So I guess what we're saying is to me, is we're throwing out what has been established in terms of a design zoning specific for this area. And being in an alleyway, it's even, I think to me, even more important to uphold that when you think about emergency vehicles and being able to get anything through there.
that alley's not very wide.
I know you have other, like 20th Avenues, but I guess I look at this and think it is an opportunity as there's rebuild and building back better, that we either uphold the limits of this, which I think there's already 15 additional feet, which is, got it, great. I think that's something that the city and Paso Grill specifically wanted to allow for, but to continue to just encroach on it now another 7 feet, that's substantial.
What's the condition of the alley back there? My memory of this, having gone through there a lot, is is it gravel? It's not paved, is it?
It's shell.
So is there going to be, if you take your car in and you cut down behind or next to where Gennaro's used to be, and you pull down there and you turn left, you don't have a whole lot of room. That alley's pretty darn small, isn't
We're
it?
going to question the applicant. If you could please come back up to the podium.
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's 4 houses, 4 to the south and 4 to the north, so on 20th and 21st, that all go down through that alley.
Right, but the alley is, what kind of shape is it in?
It's sand, yeah, it's pretty natural.
And
You can drive on it, no problem.
If you have the garage go all the way back there, are you going to have enough? I live on 11th Avenue, so I got the same situation you do. The alley's both ways. The alley behind my house is so small that my neighbor has a garage, and I had to move my fence in to give her more room to get in and out, or she couldn't get in and out.
No, you can actually pass, it's wide enough, neighbors can pass each other in that alley.
Really?
Yeah, and the addition so the house was built in the 50s. In the 60s, somebody did an addition with a sunroom and a carport. And so there was a covered carport back there. And then when we were expecting our son, we turned that into a master. So we actually did used to park that way. So this will be the same. We'll pull in from the alley, park in the back. Again, there's no car traffic on the front. That's just pedestrian in and out.
Well,
So you can make that turn in and park
When I was trying to go back to see the back of your house, to go back to that alley, there were cars parked back in there, and I couldn't even get in.
Yeah, that might have been construction, or the house on the corner behind us is under construction.
So just to clarify, the width of the current alley with the existing non-conforming kind of setbacks of the other homes allows for multiple vehicles. So I'm all about safety, so there would be no concern about.
Right, so the two that are basically right up against the alley, the one to the west of us is where the north-south alley comes in between 20th and 21st, so you take that right past their structure, and then the one behind Gennaro's, which is 2 houses to the east of us, is the other one. So actually, it's both end caps where you turn in, that both of those structures are further to the alley than where we are, and we still access it.
Yeah, we could
those are
lay
both
this
gonna
down
stay.
too if you all want to see. Like, there's at least 8, 9, 10 properties that are going to go up and down that alley, and then there's 4 facing Gulfway that have the alleys to the west. I just drove it today. I find it, depending on your vehicle, whether you really can get cars past each other, but I hear you. I believe that you could.
Yeah.
It's not going to be
Yeah.
It's gonna be
I mean,
tight.
I drive an SUV, my wife drives a truck, and we lived there for 10 years, and you can pass neighbors. It's
Yeah.
not fast, but you can get by each other.
Careful.
And then I just wanted to clarify on the front. So it was important to us as well. The neighbors to our east and west have both been there. We're kind of the new kids on the block, buying in 2012. And it was important to us to not build a big house right in front of them. My neighbor Mike to the east, his dad built the house. He's renovating. And it was important to us to not take away. So the structure, the actual house, is in the same line, 16 feet back. The encroachment to 10 is the porch above, because we didn't want to have to walk down the stairs every time somebody knocked on the door to let them in. So you kind of approach the house from an exterior stairwell, and then when you walk in, you're in the home. So it kind of lives more like a single-story house. And same way with going up to a 3rd floor with kids and everything. We did not want to go 3 floors of living. So the hardship is really the office to work from home. So I appreciate your consideration.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Madam Chair, if I may, just while the homeowner is up, if I could ask you a question. Do you have any plans, because you have that interior, because of the L shape, you have a larger interior rear yard. Do you have any future plans for any improvements in there? Or is it just maintained as?
No, just
green
yard
space?
for the kids. It gives us a little spot to play with, and that's why it was kind of unique the way it was built the first time, and that's why we're using the same. We didn't want all house on the lot. We liked the yard for the kids.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll reclose the public comment and any additional discussion.
Again, I'm for it, so.
Do we have
Say what you
a
will.
motion?
Yeah. I'll make a motion that the board approve case 25074 as proposed, based on the testimony and what we've heard today.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Member Core?
No.
Member Causey?
Yes.
Member Small?
Yes.
Vice Chair Garshaw?
No.
Chair Chase?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
That was our only action item for today, but we do have an item for discussion on case number 23072, a progress report.
Yes, Madam Chair, board members, Kristen Coleman, Senior Planner. Just to bring back to light, this is progress report number 3 as requested at the conclusion of progress report number 2, which was provided at the March meeting, where consensus of the board was that good faith efforts were continuing to be made. And at that time, Attorney Bass agreed to come back and see us once again to provide progress report number 3, and he is here.
Great.
Good afternoon.
Well, hopefully we can keep this brief. Our contractor is here, so he can provide you specific updates regarding the project that is ongoing. And then I have some updates regarding, I'm showing 6 open permits. I know that was something that was a topic of discussion last time. Of the 6, see if I can remember this, I also jotted them down, but of the 6, 3 of them are related to the current project. That's the relining of the parking lot, the open permit with the walk-in cooler, and then the project as a whole. One of them is Oh, one of them is the generator, which is not closed yet, and it's not expired. It doesn't expire until next month, and my understanding is they're not done with the work. And then the two of them are related to a company, Con and West Inc. I've actually spoken with that company as recently as yesterday. They called me back, and they've explained that they also don't know why they're not closed. It seems that the final inspection has been done. All the fees and fines, or not fines, but fees have been paid. Everything's up to date. They said they would look into it. They're interested in what to do next. And I would just ask that if we can't figure that out, if they don't know how to proceed, then I could see if the current contractor can have those closed out with this project. And that would be all the open permits. And if you have any questions there, I can allow our current contractor, John, to address any specific questions, like I said, about the current construction project.
Okay.
I have no questions.
Do you want to hear from John about the?
That would be great.
Okay. Let's get on.
John Sapiro, 12645 Racetrack Road, Tampa, Florida, 33626. I'm the general contractor for Red, White, and Booze. To give you an update, we've made some good progress. The siding finally came in. I don't know if you've all driven by, but the siding is going up. We're almost done with the siding. Of course, we couldn't start the roof until we got the siding on, so the roof is going on as well. We're in progress with that. The screen wall, which was part of the condition for the permit to hide the walk-in cooler, was submitted, I don't know, about a month ago maybe, and then there was a comment, and we just got the approval on that.
Okay, great.
So we're trying to get that scheduled into our concrete guy to get that up, and we can get it stuccoed, and we will paint it to match the building.
Perfect.
I'm assuming you don't need me to submit colors.
No, if you'd like to just relay it, but I think as long as it is consistent with what you have, I know it's cedar, so I am actually intrigued on the artistic side, how we're going to do
Beautiful.
that. I can't wait to see. But if you wanted to share, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, I promise you it's going to match, and it's going to go in with the building and stuff like that. So, and then after that, of course, then we'll do the parking lot, stripe bumper, and I believe one of the open permits was a fence, which of course we'll close that out when we wrap up with final inspections on the parking lot. So we're getting close. We're probably, depending on my concrete crew, I would say, I don't know, a month, 6 weeks is my goal to get out of there. But it's coming along. I think in my mind, it's looking great. That's just my personal opinion.
I think you've done a really good job with it. It's very attractive. It's not related to that exactly, but I'm just curious, what's going in across the street in that, the building that used to be Gennaro's?
That's not something you need to answer unless you're
Yeah,
comfortable.
I prefer not to say right now, but I'll be happy once I get authorization to do that. I'll be happy to tell you who's
Not
going.
my business, but I just was curious.
It's a good
I
question.
live nearby, so I see it every day.
Appreciate the update. I agree. I think, you guys have been making great progress. My thought is, as long as we don't, if we come 8 weeks from now and we haven't continued to see things close out, we could always request them to come back. But at this point, I feel comfortable kind of having the case move forward. Agree.
Well, and if you guys have questions, you can always email me too. I'll be happy to respond.
you.
So,
And I would like to
I try to be
mention,
as transparent as possible. So,
as well as part of the permits that are open, there will be landscaping that is required. We did have a landscape plan that we approved. We, as staff, will go out and inspect once we get that inspection request. Your planning staff will. And so that's just an additional layer that they're going to.
Okay, great. And I appreciate the owner being here today as well. So thank you for attending.
yeah. And the landscaping will be later once we get all the construction material out of there. Then we'll start the parking lot, the landscaping, so on and so forth. So,
Awesome. I know the neighborhood's excited. So
yeah, good.
thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.
Any other items for discussion? Kristen, City Attorney? Lauren?
So our next hearing.
I have one thing.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Just as far as, I think something that could be useful would be, and I don't know how this would occur, whether or not it's actually anything we need to do in a meeting or separate, but I think, just listening to the commission last night and the discussion around the District 4 commissioner and thinking about understanding our comprehensive plan, and/or like these zoning directions for specific neighborhoods, and how do we be better stewards of what it is that we should be stewarding in this role. I don't feel currently that maybe we've got specific line of sight on that kind of training and awareness, and lots of things have been evolving. So even discussing, you know, the utilization of fill, and now how that might have created different challenges with height, and I just think it would be useful for us to cover some of those basic things, and in particular, of course, if areas are historic and have some of these unique opportunities to take advantage of reduced setbacks, that's great, and then, you know, still demanding further ones. I think for us to appreciate maybe why certain things are in place and what kind of momentum in the community there is around that and support for it. Does that sound like something we either would use a meeting or a workshop time for, or that would be pushed out to us to just do on our own? I don't know. That's maybe an ask or an open.
No, I
If
think,
you all think that that would be useful.
Yeah, I would be open to that.
Yeah. And if you think of things like maybe you need additional clarification, and some of our ordinances, have changed a bit. Some are emergency things, which may not necessarily
They're not long-term.
But long-term, like you're saying, a better, fuller explanation of this overlay versus the house medium, and just
No one
kind of
wants to deprive somebody of something that looks like, you know, okay, I get it. But I think if it's also a reflection of, we are in a massive rebuild moment.
Correct.
So we could see a variance every single time for some unique element of the requirements for catering to, you know, particular needs, whatever they are. And I almost could say whatever you educate us on, probably in some digestible format, would be super smart to use for the community, communication too. So then they can think about it as far as, oh, this isn't just meant to be the city's challenging me to not do something, but in fact, there's a greater design plan in mind. I think that would be a smart thing for us to consider doing, and I'd be happy to collaborate on this with you if, you know, if that's of
And if you
use.
think of other things when you walk out of here, feel free to shoot me an email, you know, that we can even maybe discuss one or two things depending on our caseloads, right? Like with this application that was before us today, they had to go before the historic board to demolish for a design review. So staff is doing multiple reviews, and, you know, they may say, well, we're always at this podium, but there's a reason and a rhyme and a reason for it. But if we could explain that to you, just even with the setbacks today, just in a simple chart, like what they gained going with the overlay, and then they also had to do additional steps that you may not know and understand because you're just seeing what are they asking relief for, but it'll give you a better understanding of what they may not be able to do, or extra elements that are required as part of that design review.
Right, well, and backing up from that, it's like, why did that restriction get put in place to begin with? You know, because I think, for example, the historic board has spent a tremendous amount of time trying to come up with some design-specific elements and whatever. You know, I don't even know. I won't even try to pretend, but I know that there's a lot of work that goes on, and then it gets layered on, and then, you know, do we just undo it all by saying, yeah, have a couple feet here and there and sprinkle it all around, and then we're like, well, I don't know. Is it pretty defeating of the value of the dynamics that we're trying to create as far as overall look and feel in neighborhoods?
Okay.
So I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just suggesting it would be helpful to be smarter about those things that you're establishing for this city, so we can treat them with that kind of honor as we rebuild. I mean, this is again, a unique period of time.
I think that would be great, and I think the idea of just kind of sprinkling on different topics when we have, you know, smaller caseloads like today would work well, versus setting up a separate dedicated time.
And code adjustment. Who does the code adjustments?
Depending on what it is.
With the seawalls that just went through, and I mean,
You mean
I
amendments?
understand
Amendments to-
preserving Pasadena. We've been here forever, but What the storm just showed us is that some of our codes might not be, I don't know, an acceptable way to have to build things after you're demolished. I mean, we're in different times right now. Way different times. I love historic Casa Grande, but
We do.
what's going on with my seahorse, by the way? Anybody have an update on that?
Any other comments related to today's meeting? Otherwise,
No, we're good.
we'll adjourn.
You were going to say for our next meeting,
For our next meeting.